The Inner Cage, Unlocking Authentic Flow. Introduction. Consider the effortless cadence of conversation with a cherished confidant, a soul with whom words unfurl like silk. Laughter lands with precision, ideas ignite, and you inhabit your truest self. Now, juxtapose this with the charged atmosphere of a high-stakes meeting or an audience with someone you deeply revere. Suddenly, the mind becomes a frantic hive. What should I utter? Will it meet their approval? Does my articulation possess sufficient gravitas? The organic rhythm dissolves, supplanted by a constricting, anxious self-awareness. It is as if an unseen barrier has materialized, muffling your voice and ensnaring your thoughts. This sensation of confinement, of hesitation, of inauthenticity, is not an isolated affliction. It is a universal human experience, a silent battle waged by many. This, dear reader, is the inner cage. So frequently, we erroneously equate liberation with external rectitude. We yearn for affection, for recognition of success, for an unblemished record. We endeavor to perform in ways we perceive will secure approbation and shield us from scrutiny. It resembles the futile endeavor of fortifying a dwelling by perpetually reinforcing its exterior walls, hoping to withstand any tempest. We elevate others to pedestals, desperately attempting to decipher their desires, to ascertain what pronouncements will elicit their assent. This incessant pursuit of external validation, this ceaseless quest to project an image of safe conformity, is profoundly enervating. It saps our vitality and, more insidiously, it pilfers our authentic essence. We become so engrossed in the performance that we sever our connection to the individual concealed beneath the facade, and the very connection we crave remains superficial, constructed upon the ephemeral foundation of what we imagine others desire, rather than the bedrock of who we genuinely are. But what if I were to reveal that true freedom, the kind that permits your voice to resonate with clarity, and your connections to deepen profoundly, is not attained by erecting higher ramparts or soliciting more external affirmation? What if genuine liberty resides within, in the cultivation of an unshakable internal security? This, my friends, is the very heart of our exploration. The overarching principle is this: authentic freedom in our communication and our connections, both with ourselves and with others, emerges not from the chase for external validation or security, but from the deliberate construction of our own inner sanctuary. It is the art of cultivating a profound sense of security and acceptance within our own being, irrespective of external circumstances. This is the essence of internal safety. Internal safety is the profound assurance of being utterly at ease within your own skin, unburdened by the opinions of others, their agreement, or their admiration. It is the quiet conviction that you possess the capacity to navigate any challenge life presents, rooted in your unwavering trust in your own feelings, your own values, and your own intuition. When this inner security is firmly established, the need for self-censorship dissipates. The fear of judgment diminishes. You are simply able to be. This liberation allows you to vibe, to connect organically, to express your unique self, and even to engage in the joyous act of play as adults, a capacity we too often allow to atrophy. It signifies an ability to honor your own feelings and to recognize your inherent sufficiency, independent of external affirmation. This transformative journey is about the systematic dismantling of that inner cage, brick by painstaking brick. It is about uncovering the pathways to forging that sense of security from the inside out. As you embark on this endeavor, you will discover that your words begin to flow with renewed fluidity, your connections deepen and acquire a richer authenticity, and you cultivate a resilience capable of withstanding any storm. You will learn to heed your own inner compass, to find solace and delight in your own company, and to articulate yourself with unvarnished truth even when subjected to immense pressure. This book serves as your steadfast guide, illuminating the path from the twilight of external approval into the radiant luminescence of your own authentic self. Are you prepared to unlock your inherent flow? Chapter 1. Building Internal Safety. 1. Understanding internal safety. Have you ever marveled at a child's effortless capacity for being? They will belt out songs with uninhibited gusto, conjure elaborate worlds from a mere stick and stone, or articulate their thoughts with a disarming directness. Their existence possesses a natural cadence, an innate ability to simply vibe with whatever captures their attention. They are unburdened by the specter of appearing foolish, uttering an indiscreet word, or seeking external approbation. They exist fully in the present entirely as themselves. As adults, we often yearn for that same liberation, that profound capacity for genuine connection and unvarnished self-expression, free from the constrictions that bind us internally. We aspire to vibe with people, with our vocations, with life itself. Yet, for so many, that sensation of uninhibited flow proves elusive, slipping through our grasp like fine sand. When we endeavor to speak, to articulate an idea, or even to engage in casual discourse, we may find ourselves ensnared by a sudden rush of overthinking, a cascade of second-guessing, or a tightening knot of anxiety in our core. We are no longer engaging in play. We are performing. What precipitates this transformation? Why, as adults, do we so often find ourselves more constrained than children? The answer, I have discovered, resides in a fundamental divergence in our perception of safety. Children, in their untainted innocence, frequently operate from a wellspring of intrinsic security. They have not yet erected the intricate fortifications and accumulated the anxieties that can ultimately imprison us in later years. They have not yet learned to anchor their self-worth so precariously to the opinions of others. Consider the palpable difference between confiding in a trusted confidant and addressing someone you hold in high esteem, someone you have elevated to an almost reverential status. With a close friend, the stakes feel negligible. You can afford to be imperfect, to meander in your speech, to find amusement in your own jests. There is a comfortable rapport, an organic rhythm. You are simply conversing. Now, imagine yourself in a formal meeting, or striving to make a favorable impression on someone significant. Suddenly, each utterance carries a weighty burden. You are not merely speaking, you are being evaluated. Your mind races. Did I phrase that correctly? Will they perceive me as intelligent? What if they hold a contrary view? Your natural cadence evaporates, supplanted by a palpable tension. This transition, from effortless dialogue to anxious performance, illuminates a crucial truth. When we perceive our safety to be imperiled, our capacity for authenticity dissolves. And for the vast majority of us, our default posture has become the external pursuit of security. We seek it in the accolades of others, in the attainment of specific objectives, in the possession of coveted items, or in the utterance of precisely the right words. We harbor the conviction that if we can just garner sufficient external validation, enough affirmations from the world, we will finally achieve a state of unshakable security. Yet, here lies the paradox. This relentless quest for external validation is precisely what perpetuates our confinement within our internal prisons. It demands a perpetual exertion to manage how we are perceived, to ensure we are liked, accepted, or admired. We become so consumed with coaxing the world to bestow upon us what we deem essential, safety, worthiness, approval, that we overlook the most potent source of all, ourselves. This endeavor is akin to attempting to fill a vessel with a leak. Regardless of the volume of water poured in from without, if the container is compromised, it will never truly be full. The sensation of being stifled, of being in your head rather than immersed in your flow, serves as an unequivocal signal. It is your internal alarm bell, broadcasting that something is amiss, that your sense of security has been jeopardized. When you find yourself dissecting every word, when a flush creeps up your neck, or when you preemptively censor your thoughts before they find voice, pose to yourself a simple, yet profound inquiry. What is it that is currently undermining my sense of safety? Frequently, the answer does not lie in a tangible external threat. It resides within the cages we have meticulously constructed internally. These cages are fashioned from a myriad of elements: the dread of judgment, the deeply ingrained conviction of inadequacy, the imperative to maintain an unblemished facade of perfection, or the desperate need to perform in order to be loved. These are not external barriers. They are the invisible fortifications we erect within our own psyche. They are the self-imposed limitations that impede our ability to fully embrace our own power and to express ourselves without reservation. When ensnared in this cyclical pattern, we may attempt to extricate ourselves by intensifying our pursuit of external security. We might redouble our efforts to appease others, or strive to exert control over every circumstance to preempt any hint of criticism. However, this is tantamount to attempting to escape a cage by pounding more ferociously on its bars. It only serves to reinforce the prison. True liberation, the kind that permits us to vibe and to engage in spontaneous play, is not achieved through the manipulation of the external world. It is attained by dismantling the cage from within. It arises from learning to remain with yourself, to trust your own intuitions and inner guidance, even when the external landscape appears fraught with uncertainty or criticism. This is where the concept of internal safety truly asserts its significance. It is not merely an abstract notion, it is the very foundation upon which authentic expression, genuine connection, and the capacity to vibe are constructed. Internal safety is the profound assurance of being secure and embraced within oneself, irrespective of external opinions or circumstances. It is a deep-seated declaration of, I am perfectly all right, here and now exactly as I am. When you possess internal safety, the need to perform dissipates. The compulsion to seek validation vanishes. You can simply be present. You can be truthful. You can be vulnerable. This internal state empowers you to take center stage from a position of inherent confidence, rather than from a desperate need to prove something. It is the distinction between the individual whose boisterousness masks profound insecurity and the one whose quiet self-assurance commands attention through presence alone. So, how does one embark on the cultivation of this elusive internal safety? It is crucial to grasp that it is not a passive waiting game for the sensation of okayness to descend. It is an active, deliberate process. It involves forging a conscious relationship with oneself, a dynamic wherein you learn to place unwavering trust in your own inner compass. It entails recognizing that the capacity for self-validation and emotional fulfillment resides intrinsically within you. You do not require external sanction to feel joy, to feel worthy, or to feel secure. This proposition may strike many of us as radical, given the extensive duration we have spent directing our gaze outward. We have been conditioned, implicitly or explicitly, to associate our worth with external accomplishments, with the judgments of others, or with conforming to a prescribed archetype. We have been indoctrinated into the belief that external safety, the attainment of a stable career, a reputable standing, a loving partnership, represents the ultimate aspiration. While these elements are undeniably valuable, they are not synonymous with internal safety. External security can be irrevocably lost in an instant. It is perpetually contingent. Internal safety, once nurtured, becomes an indomitable resource that remains steadfast. Consider the tangible, palpable differences in how individuals communicate and behave when they operate from a perceived state of external security versus genuine internal safety. Someone driven by the need for external validation may incessantly seek reassurance, repeatedly inquiring, "Is this acceptable?" Or "Do you approve?" Their discourse can feel tentative, as if they are treading carefully to avoid potential disapproval. They might shy away from voicing opinions that could prove contentious, opting instead for agreement or silence to maintain harmony. Their energy may manifest as somewhat constricted, a trifle strained, akin to an overstretched rubber band, perpetually poised to recoil. They are in a state of constant environmental scanning, seeking cues, searching for indications that they are meeting expectations. Their flow is incessantly disrupted by the imperative to check in with the external world. Conversely, an individual possessing a robust sense of internal safety communicates with a distinct gravitas. While they may remain thoughtful and considerate, their discourse is firmly rooted in their own convictions. They can express dissent respectfully or articulate an opposing viewpoint, without the fear that it will precipitate the unraveling of their entire world. They are more prone to spontaneity, to finding humor in their own imperfect endeavors, to embracing the inherent messiness of existence. Their energy feels more relaxed, more expansive. They are not engaged in a perpetual scan for threats. They are simply immersed in the present moment. can undertake communicative risks because their sense of self-worth is not contingent upon the outcome. They can truly vibe because the internal melody by which they dance is their own. This incessant pursuit of external validation not only engenders anxiety, it actively undermines the development of internal safety. Reflect upon it. If your primary objective is to elicit favorable regard from others, you are inherently entrusting your sense of self to their discretion. You are relinquishing your power. You become beholden to their approval. This can lead to what some term emotional masturbation, a ceaseless preoccupation with one's internal state and its potential reception, devoid of authentic engagement with the world. It constitutes a self-referential loop that perpetuates your entrapment within your own mind, compelling you to analyze and reanalyze your every action rather than forging genuine connections. The long-term ramifications of this dynamic are substantial. We risk becoming people pleasers, disengaging from our own needs and desires. We may forego opportunities for growth due to the inherent risk of failure or criticism. We can cultivate a profound fear of rejection, a paralyzing force that impedes our ability to forge authentic, profound connections. We may experience a persistent sense of void, a nagging feeling that something is absent, because the external validation we crave offers only a transient solace, akin to a sugar rush that rapidly fades, leaving us yearning for more. This is the very definition of being ensnared within an internal cage, a cage not constructed of iron bars, but of our own apprehensions and our reliance on the external world for our sense of worth. The pathway to unlocking authentic flow, therefore, is not predicated on acquiring novel stratagems to impress others or navigating that world with greater adroitness to evade their scrutiny. It is about turning inward. It is about recognizing that the most stable, dependable, and empowering source of safety emanates from within. It entails fostering a deep, unwavering self-acceptance and a playful inclination toward self-amusement. When you can embrace yourself, imperfections and all, and even find a measure of humor in your own human experience, you forge an inner sanctuary. This sanctuary is not a retreat from the world. Quite the contrary. It is a vibrant, resilient inner space from which you can engage with the world fully, openly, and authentically. It is from this locus of internal safety that you can truly vibe, that you can connect with genuine depth, and that you can express yourself without trepidation. It is the bedrock that enables you to be present, to be resilient, and to savor the richness of life, even when circumstances prove challenging. Comprehending this fundamental tenet, that true freedom commences with the construction of an unshakable inner sanctuary, is the initial, indispensable step on the journey toward unlocking your authentic flow. 2. Embracing self-acceptance. There exists within us a persistent murmur, a subtle inner voice that chronicles every perceived misstep, every awkward interlude, every moment we feel we have fallen short. This is the voice of the inner critic, an architect of our profound internal confinement. For years, I harbored the conviction that silencing this voice, or perhaps earning its absolution through an unattainable perfection, was the sole path to liberation. I pursued accolades with a desperate fervor, recoiling from any hint of disapproval, perpetually striving to embody the version of myself I presumed others desired. This relentless pursuit was not merely exhausting, it was ultimately futile. The cage, far from loosening its grip, only tightened. This ceaseless yearning for external validation, for the approval of others, is a stark indicator that we have not yet found sanctuary within ourselves. We seek solace in the ephemeral, in nods of assent, in digital affirmations, in fleeting smiles. Yet, these are as unstable as constructing a dwelling upon shifting sands, vulnerable to the next ebb tide of opinion or circumstance. In our fervent efforts to impress or to avert offense, our authentic selves are relegated to the periphery. We commence a vigilant self-monitoring of every utterance, every gesture, haunted by the specter of inadequacy. Is this acceptable? Will they approve? Am I faltering? This is the inner cage in its full manifestation, a self-imposed prison forged from the fear of not being enough. It is the genesis of that profound solitude we can experience even amidst a throng, ensnared by our own self-consciousness. Our gaze is so fixed upon the external audience that we neglect the most pivotal attendee, ourselves. Consider this. When you are utterly immersed in enjoyment, in a state of effortless flow, the opinions of others recede into insignificance. You are simply engaged. You laugh, you create, you play. This is the antithesis of confinement. This is freedom. And this freedom commences with the radical act of self-acceptance, not as an idealized, flawless entity, but as we are, in this very moment, replete with our eccentricities and our less than perfect episodes. We have been indoctrinated with a narrative, have we not? A narrative that posits perfection as the prerequisite for worthiness. Perfect aesthetics, perfect careers, perfect relationships, perfect dispositions. It is a ceaseless, suffocating crucible. But what if I were to propose that perfection itself is, in fact, a cage? It is a desolate, sterile expanse where genuine connection is rendered impossible, both outward and inward. The profound truth is that our imperfections are not blemishes to be concealed. They are the very essence of our humanity, the bedrock of our relatability, and, astonishingly, the wellspring of our strength. Recall those instances when you witnessed another's unvarnished vulnerability, their candid admission of error, their revelation of a less than polished facet of their being. Did this not often forge a more profound bond? Did it not render them more approachable, more palpably real? This is the inherent honesty of imperfection. It is a silent declaration, I am not performing. This is my truth. When we extend this authenticity to ourselves, we grant others the grace to reciprocate. This is the fertile ground where the magic of vibing and playing takes root. Genuine playfulness, characterized by its lightness, spontaneity, and unadulterated joy, can only flourish when the specter of error or embarrassment holds no sway. If you are engaged in a game, yet consumed by the dread of defeat or the fear of appearing foolish, are you truly playing? Or are you performing? When you can embrace the possibility of missteps, the likelihood of not excelling, and indeed, find humor in your own stumbles, that is when the true exhilaration begins. It is a conscious decision to liberate oneself from the confines of perfectionism and step into the boundless expanse of our shared humanity. I recall an episode early in my professional journey during a pivotal presentation. Weeks of diligent preparation had culminated in meticulously crafted slides and a memorized script. Yet, midway through, my thoughts fractured, my mind utterly blank. Panic surged. My primal instinct was to freeze, to feign ignorance, to desperately scramble for an anchor. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm. I was convinced of the audience's condemnation, their silent pronouncement. This individual is utterly unqualified. The inner cage slammed shut with a resounding finality. Then a subtle recalibration occurred. Perhaps it was sheer desperation, or a nascent flicker of rebellion against my own internal censor. I drew a breath, met the gaze of the audience, and confessed, my voice tinged with a tremor, well, this is rather mortifying. My brain appears to have opted for an impromptu coffee break. Allow me a moment to reorient myself. And then, a smile emerged. A genuine, albeit slightly sheepish, smile. The ensuing reaction was unexpected. A scattering of smiles returned from the audience. A soft chuckle rippled through the room. The palpable tension did not escalate, it dissipated. I found my footing once more, not through a sudden infusion of perfection, but through the audacious act of allowing myself to be imperfect. In that instant, I had granted myself permission to be human. This small act of self-acceptance, this acknowledgement of my fallibility without succumbing to its weight, paradoxically imbued me with a newfound resilience. I was able to continue, not with the pristine facade I had meticulously constructed, but with a grounding presence that felt remarkably authentic. It was a moment of genuine connection, not merely with those assembled, but with myself. This brings us to the imperative of relinquishing the ego's insatiable appetite for perceptual control. Our ego, in its perpetual pursuit of security, erects elaborate fortifications. It whispers that we must be more intelligent, wittier, more accomplished, more anything than we are, all to shield ourselves from the perceived peril of inadequacy. Yet, This ceaseless performance is a profound drain on our vitality. When we begin to loosen our grip on this compulsion, when we surrender the illusion of absolute control and the necessity of presenting an unblemished facade, a remarkable transformation unfolds. We become more receptive, more present, more authentically ourselves. This act of surrender is not an abdication of responsibility or a cessation of personal growth. It is the profound recognition that our intrinsic worth is not contingent upon our achievements or our prowess in concealing our perceived shortcomings. It is the realization that true strength resides in our capacity for self-compassion, even when we falter. When those moments of vulnerability inevitably arise, rather than engaging in self-recrimination, we can cultivate a response of gentle kindness. This kindness is the very cornerstone of internal security. It is the quiet assurance that whispers, "It is permissible. You are in a process of learning. You are evolving. And you are worthy, precisely as you are." This cultivation of self-acceptance is also the secret ingredient for genuine human connection. When we are perpetually soliciting validation from others, our relationships can devolve into a form of transactional exchange. We seek them to fill an internal void, to assuage our doubts. This can engender a subtle pressure, a palpable sense of neediness, which often repels others. However, when we have nurtured our inner landscape with self-acceptance, the need for external validation diminishes. We can extend connection from a place of abundance, not deficit. Imagine encountering an individual who is demonstrably at ease with their own being. They do not boast, nor do they posture, yet they offer no apologies for their existence. They are simply present. Their capacity for deep listening is unburdened by preoccupation with your perception of them. Their authentic sharing flows freely, uninhibited by the fear of your judgment. This is the potent magic of self-acceptance. It creates an environment where others feel sufficiently secure to reveal their own true selves. It generates a benevolent ripple effect. Your internal fortitude and acceptance establish a sanctuary for others to embrace their vulnerability, fostering connections that are richer, more honest, and profoundly more fulfilling. And what of self-amusement? This is a beautiful, often underestimated, hallmark of profound self-acceptance. When you can genuinely find humor in your own foibles, your missteps, or the inherent absurdities of existence, it signifies a liberation from excessive self-seriousness. You are not perched precariously upon a fragile pedestal, susceptible to imminent collapse. You are grounded. This innate capacity for self-erected mirth serves as a formidable buffer against external pressures. It is a silent declaration: life will undoubtedly present its challenges, and I may not always meet them with flawless execution, but I can still derive pleasure from the game. Observe a child at play. They are utterly absorbed in their imaginative world, conjuring rules, delighting in their own whimsical creations. They are unconcerned with an audience or an evaluation. They exist in a state of complete presence and self-directed amusement. As adults, we frequently forfeit this precious faculty. Our focus becomes so fixated upon external outcomes and judgments that we lose the art of simple, self-directed play. The cultivation of self-amusement is a reclamation of that childlike exuberance, a testament that our sense of worth is not tethered to external applause. It is a direct manifestation of feeling secure and at peace within our own being. So, how do we embark upon this transformative journey? It is not a matter of flipping a switch. It is a practice, a gentle, continuous unfolding. It commences with acknowledging the inner critic. When that judgmental voice arises, instead of capitulating to its pronouncements, recognize its presence. Affirm inwardly, there is that familiar narrative surfacing. Subsequently, endeavor to counter it with a more benevolent, more accepting perspective. If an error has occurred, instead of admonishing yourself with, "I am utterly inept, try this." Very well, that outcome was not as intended. What insights can I glean from this experience? The objective is to transition from self-condemnation to self-compassion. This endeavor also necessitates the active practice of self-validation. This entails acknowledging your own emotions, your own needs, and your own accomplishments, regardless of their perceived magnitude. When a challenging day has transpired, Can you offer yourself a silent acknowledgement of resilience for having navigated it? When a milestone has been reached, can you permit yourself to experience pride without immediately deflecting or minimizing its significance? This internal affirmation is paramount. It is akin to assembling your own personal cheering squad, one that operates independently of external patronage. Embracing self-acceptance is not about arriving at an idealized state of perfection. It is about choosing a trajectory of kindness toward ourselves, a path where we learn to walk in concert with our imperfections rather than attempting to outrun them. It is the quiet assurance that arises from the profound understanding that you are, at your core, fundamentally acceptable precisely as you are, even when you are not at your zenith. This internal metamorphosis is the most potent catalyst for dismantling the inner cage. It is the force that liberates our authentic voice, enabling us to engage with the world from a posture of genuine freedom and playfulness rather than from behind the formidable bars of fear and self-recrimination. When we embrace ourselves, we unlock the very gateway to truly living. 3. Authentic communication. We frequently find ourselves ensnared in conversational knots, particularly when faced with individuals we perceive as significant or when the desire for their approval becomes paramount. Consider a dialogue with your superior, a figure you deeply admire, or even during the delicate dance of a first encounter. What transpires? Your thoughts begin to scatter like startled birds. You are plagued by the specter of uttering a misstep, of sounding foolish, or of betraying an intellectual deficit. Your every effort is bent towards achieving an impeccable performance, towards eliciting admiration. This phenomenon I term the pedestal effect. Envision placing someone upon a lofty pedestal. You have, in your mind, magnified their stature and importance, rendering them greater than yourself. Consequently, the benchmark for your utterances and their delivery escalates to an almost unattainable height. You are not merely engaging in discourse, you are attempting a theatrical production. Each word is subjected to rigorous censorship and meticulous editing before it even breaches your lips. This relentless self-scrutiny, coupled with the knowing apprehension of toppling from that elevated perch, is an utterly draining endeavor. It is akin to traversing a tightrope while simultaneously juggling. Your attention is so consumed by the imperative of not dropping anything that the actual act of walking becomes an impossible pleasure. This fervent fixation on their perception or their expectations utterly suffocates your natural cadence, your genuine persona, and that effortless, reciprocal rhythm we recognize as connection. Now contemplate the inverse. With whom do you converse most fluidly? Typically, it is with friends or family with whom you share an unreserved comfort. With them, there is no pedestal. The bar is set low, or perhaps it is absent altogether. You can indulge in silliness, utter a nonsensical remark, and then dissolve into laughter. You can embrace moments of quietude, or pivot to an entirely different topic without a second's hesitation. It is it not effortless? This illustrates that the impediment is seldom the other party. It resides within our own internal calibration. It is the architecture of our minds that dictates the elevation we assign to another, and consequently, the pressure we impose upon ourselves. This pedestal effect is a stark indicator of a crucial deficit, internal security. We harbor a fear of the repercussions should we fail to exhibit perfection when interacting with someone we have placed on a pedestal. We dread their judgment or their disapproval, compelling us to conceal our true selves and to mask ourselves as someone we believe they would find more appealing. This compulsion to perform, to perpetually articulate the correct sentiment, constitutes a confinement. It imprisons our authentic voice. When we experience profound inner security, the inclination to elevate others diminishes. We perceive them as fellow human beings, kindred spirits. We can articulate ourselves from our own grounded reality rather than from a posture of striving to attain some imaginary apex. This transition from an upward gaze to a horizontal perspective represents a monumental stride in fortifying the inner fortitude that permits our genuine selves to radiate through the medium of conversation. The capacity to forge genuine connections with others, to share a moment of levity, to experience a pervasive sense of ease and mutual comprehension, This is often referred to as vibing. In adulthood, this vibing bears a striking resemblance to the unfettered play of children. Reflect upon it. When do children experience their most profound joy and their most abundant energy? It is when they feel utterly secure. A child who feels safe will explore, will engage in imaginative play, will concoct narratives, will express themselves boisterously or quietly, will offer embraces, and will pose an incessant barrage of questions. They experiment with their world and their emotions without reservation. They do not concern themselves with whether they are participating in the correct game or if their imaginary companion might be deemed absurd. They are entirely present and immersed. This identical sensation of security is what empowers adults to vibe and connect authentically. When we possess internal security, that profound assurance of being steadfast and accepted within ourselves, irrespective of external circumstances, we can embrace spontaneity. We can permit ourselves a degree of vulnerability. We can articulate our thoughts and emotions without an imposing filter. We can cultivate curiosity about the other person without feeling imperiled. This fosters a shared space, a mutual understanding, a tangible connection. It is akin to a dance where both partners feel at ease and can move in unison with natural grace. In the absence of this internal security, vibing feels contrived. We might endeavor to be humorous, only to devolve into anxious jesting. We might attempt to convey interest, but our inquiries will sound like mere perfunctory checks. We are so consumed by the dread of missteps or of being disliked that we are incapable of being sufficiently present to forge that genuine connection. We are performing, not playing. We are striving to project an aura of safety, rather than embodying safety. And that exertion, that performance, is precisely what erects barriers between us and others. True vibing is not predicated upon possessing the perfect witty rejoinder or the most captivating smile. It is about feeling secure enough to simply exist as oneself. It is about lowering one's defenses, predicated on the trust in one's own capacity to navigate whatever may arise, whether it be a positive affirmation or a neutral reception. Thus, when communication feels stagnant, awkward, or palpably disingenuous, it serves as a potent indicator. It is akin to an internal alarm bell sounding. This sensation of being confined, of being unable to express oneself freely, is the consequence of being ensnared within what we can term an inner cage. This cage is not constructed of visible metallic bars. It is fashioned from our own apprehensions, our own doubts, and our own unfulfilled needs. The moment communication feels stifled, the most potent inquiry you can pose to yourself is not "what did they do incorrectly?" or "what should I have articulated?" It is a far simpler and significantly more crucial question: what is presently undermining my sense of security? This question directs the spotlight inward. It compels us to examine our internal landscape rather than attributing blame to external circumstances or the other individual. Is it the fear of being scrutinized? Is it a deeply ingrained compulsion to garner universal approval? Did a past experience render us wary? Or do we harbor a clandestine conviction that our authentic selves, our genuine thoughts and feelings, are simply insufficient to be shared? These constitute the foundational elements of the inner cage. They constrict our ability to articulate our truth and to connect with genuine sincerity. When we can identify these sources of insecurity, we are provided with a roadmap. We can commence the gentle process of interrogating these fears. We can begin to challenge those ingrained beliefs. We can recognize that the cage is a construct of our own making, and because we erected it, we also possess the agency to dismantle it, piece by painstaking piece. This marks the initial step toward cultivating genuine internal security. It involves acknowledging that the impediments to authentic communication often reside within us, awaiting comprehension and gentle release. We frequently pursue what is termed external security. This may manifest as an endeavor to appease everyone, an avoidance of any form of contention, or a constant assurance that we are espousing the popular viewpoint. We might attempt to govern the reactions of others towards us, or strive to project an image of greater confidence than we inwardly possess, in the hope that if we appear secure, we will become secure. However, This is akin to attempting to erect a dwelling upon shifting sands. It may offer a fleeting illusion of solidity, but it lacks genuine substance and is susceptible to collapse at any moment. The pursuit of external validation, the reliance on others to affirm our worth, our adequacy, is a transient palliative. It curtails our capacity for genuine self-expression, as our focus remains perpetually external, fixated on the potential perceptions of others. We are in a perpetual state of seeking permission to be ourselves. True, enduring liberation in communication, that unstoppable current, emanates from a far more profound source. It arises from the cultivation of internal security. This entails establishing a robust inner bedrock of self-acceptance. It is about trusting our own sentiments, our own values, and our own instincts. It is about recognizing that we possess the inherent power to validate ourselves. We are not dependent on external pronouncements of our worth. We can acknowledge our intrinsic value. When we possess this inner sense of assurance, we are no longer beholden to others for our sense of well-being. We can articulate our truths, even if they diverge from prevailing opinions. We can share our concepts, even if they appear somewhat unconventional. We can embrace vulnerability, even if there exists a possibility that the response may not align perfectly with our expectations. This represents a profound paradigm shift, moving from the question, "What will they find appealing?" to "What resonates as authentic to me?" or "What do I wish to convey?" It is about maintaining a connection with your own inner compass. When you prioritize your internal truth and your own sense of worth, your apprehension towards external reactions diminishes. You grasp that your value is not contingent upon the opinions of others. This does not imply a descent into rudeness or inconsideration. It signifies communicating from a position of wholeness rather than from a stance of deficiency or fear. You can assert yourself without resorting to aggression, and you can be forthright without causing offense. This internal security is the driving force behind authentic expression and genuine connection. It is the key that unlocks your true voice and permits your unique vibe to resonate with others. Let us delve more deeply into the practical manifestations of this pedestal effect. Envision yourself attending a job interview. You have diligently researched the organization, rehearsed your responses, and you enter the room with a palpable blend of apprehension and ambition. The interviewer sits opposite you, perhaps impeccably attired, holding a pen. Instantly, your mind may begin to elevate them. They hold the power to grant you this position. They embody success. Suddenly, they are elevated to a pedestal. What impact does this have on your communication? You might find yourself speaking with a formality that exceeds your usual demeanor, attempting to employ more sophisticated vocabulary, or nodding with excessive eagerness. Your focus is so intently fixed on projecting an image of competence and keenness that you neglect to simply be yourself, to convey your genuine enthusiasm for the role, or to pose the questions that genuinely pique your interest. The underlying beliefs fueling this behavior? Perhaps a conviction that you are inherently unqualified unless you offer irrefutable proof, or a fear that any perceived weakness will be immediately seized upon and exploited. You are not merely conversing with an individual, you are attempting to pass an examination devised by someone you have unconsciously placed on a higher plane. This identical dynamic unfolds during first dates. We frequently aspire to impress, to be perceived as desirable, witty, and engaging. The other individual assumes the role of the arbiter, and we feel the pressure to perform. We might refrain from divulging a slightly eccentric aspect of ourselves, or we might embellish our achievements, all because we have placed them on a pedestal and dread their judgment. Even within familial gatherings, we sometimes elevate certain relatives, the sagacious elder, the accomplished sibling, the one who always appears to have their affairs in perfect order. We then subject ourselves to self-censorship, hesitant to voice a dissenting opinion or to share a personal struggle, lest we disrupt the image we have cultivated for them, or the image we believe they expect of us. The underlying tenet here is often that our authentic selves are somehow less valuable or less acceptable than a polished, performance-ready iteration. Beyond the realm of childhood play, what other adult analogies for vibing clearly illuminate the indispensable nature of internal security? For authentic connection, consider a musical jam session between musicians who implicitly trust one another. They do not require a rigid script. One individual might initiate a rhythm, another might introduce a melody, and a third might spontaneously improvise a solo. It is a fluid, spontaneous exchange, propelled by a shared understanding and a sense of security to experiment. If one musician strikes a discordant note, the others do not halt the performance and assign blame. They might incorporate it into the improvisation or simply proceed, allowing the flow to persist. The music thrives because each musician feels secure enough to contribute their part without the specter of harsh critique. Another analogy is a gathering of friends around a campfire exchanging stories. The narratives might be humorous, poignant, adventurous, or even slightly embarrassing. However, owing to an established foundation of trust and acceptance, each individual feels secure enough to share their experience. The vibe is characterized by mutual attentiveness, empathy, and shared humanity. No one feels compelled to put on a show. They simply speak from the heart. This is adult vibing in its purest form, a profound, effortless connection that emerges when internal security permits genuine expression and vulnerability. It stands in stark contrast to a formal presentation, where the emphasis is on delivering information with flawless precision. It is about the shared experience, the human connection that flourishes when we feel secure enough to be ourselves. Chapter 2. Growing Through Inner Strength. 1. Internal validation over external approval. A persistent whisper, an incessant nudge, implores us to conform, to speak and think as others deem proper, all in service of a fleeting nod of approval. We become actors on a grand stage, diligently reciting lines and hitting our marks, not from a love of the performance, but from a desperate yearning for applause. This relentless pursuit of external validation constructs a suffocating cage around our authentic selves. We cling to the illusion that widespread affirmation, the chorus of "yes, you are good," will finally grant us a sense of security. Yet, this security is a mirage, a house built upon shifting sands. When the tide of opinion turns, or the very people whose validation we crave drift away, our world threatens to disintegrate. Consider your interactions with someone you hold in high esteem, an individual placed upon a pedestal. How does your speech transform? Your words become ponderous, meticulously chosen. You replay them mentally, dissecting their perceived intelligence, wit, or impressiveness. This is the insidious dance of perceived external safety. You tread on eggshells, paralyzed by the fear of uttering a misstep that might shatter the carefully constructed image in their eyes. The exertion is profound, is it not? Genuine connection is supplanted by mere performance, a precarious tightrope walk where judgment or rejection looms with every falter. Contrast this with conversing with your oldest, most cherished friend. In such company, silliness, imperfection, and spontaneous thought flow unimpeded. There is no pressure, no apprehension, because their approval is not the currency of your exchange. Their acceptance, flaws and all, is a given. You vibe, you play, you exist in your unvarnished entirety. The implicit standard is low, not out of a lack of regard, but because a profound internal security has already been forged. Their every pronouncement is not required to anchor your sense of well-being. This starkly illuminates the chasm between the pursuit of external validation and the cultivation of internal safety. This ceaseless compulsion to appease others acts as a voracious drain on our vitality. Imagine attempting a marathon while burdened by a heavy pack overflowing with the expectations of every soul you've encountered. Optimal performance becomes an impossibility when our energies are consumed by deciphering what will they like, or what will bring them happiness. We are severed from our own genuine desires and creative impulses. Our focus is diverted. We self-censor, stifle natural inclinations, and dim our inherent brilliance, all to sustain the precarious edifice of external approval. It is akin to a magician performing a dazzling distraction, diverting attention from the intricate machinations occurring behind the curtain. In our fixation on the outward spectacle, we forget the potent force residing within. This is not merely a matter of social grace. It represents a fundamental redirection of our life's energy. And for what? A fleeting pat on the back that vanishes with the next passerby. The transcript articulated a potent analogy. Seeking external validation is akin to requiring another to scratch an itch you possess, the capacity to assuage yourself. It is a subtle form of emotional self-sabotage. Instead of recognizing your own innate power to find solace and self-acceptance, you perpetually solicit it from external sources. This is a primary architect of our inner confinement. We languish in a state of waiting for permission to feel adequate, for a green light from the world beyond ourselves. This protracted vigil leeches our vitality, stifling our capacity for uninhibited expression and genuine engagement. It erects barriers to that effortless state of flow, that immersive zone where creativity and connection unfurl organically. This is where internal validation emerges, like the gentle, unwavering dawn after a protracted night. Internal validation is the quiet, assured certainty of your inherent goodness, precisely as you are, with all you possess, in all you do, irrespective of external opinion. It is the fortitude to trust your intuition, to honor your core values, and to derive a sense of worth from within. It is the immutable bedrock of authentic connection. When you can validate yourself, you construct an unassailable sanctuary of safety. You cease to solicit external affirmations, you already possess them. This internal security liberates you to relax, to be spontaneous, to embrace vulnerability, and to forge genuine bonds. It lowers the internal threshold for acceptable self-expression. Perfection is not the prerequisite, authenticity is. This is how you can truly inhabit yourself, fully present and at peace, even when the terrain becomes uneven. Among the most potent instruments for cultivating this internal validation is self-amusement. Though seemingly simple, even whimsical, the ability to discover mirth and delight within one's own existence, even amidst hardship, is a profound act of self-endorsement. When you can find humor in a misstep, perceive the comedic in a frustrating predicament, or simply revel in your own eccentric musings, you demonstrate remarkable self-reliance. You signify that your well-being is not contingent upon external circumstances or the judgments of others. You are your own fount of joy. This capacity for self-amusement possesses an irresistible allure, signaling an inner ease, a liberation from the desperate quest for external approval. You are already engaged in enjoyment, and that magnetism draws others near. It stands in stark opposition to the need for external entertainment or validation. You are the entertainer, the source of your own delight. The very essence of this paradigm shift, the clandestine key to unlocking authentic flow, resides in a fundamental reorientation of focus. It is the transition from querying, "What will they appreciate?" to asking, "What will I appreciate?" This is the pivotal juncture. It is the conscious resolution to direct your attention inward, to honor your own sentiments, your own aspirations, and your unique mode of being. It is the recognition that your internal landscape holds a more profound truth and enduring satisfaction than any external ovation. When you begin to inquire what you find appealing, what resonates as right for you, you commence trusting your internal compass. You begin to value your own discernment. This is not a descent into selfishness. It is an embrace of authenticity. It is the acknowledgement that you are the ultimate arbiter of your own existence, your own feelings, and your own intrinsic worth. Thus, how does the dread of losing external approval actively forge the inner cage that impedes genuine communication and flow? It operates by engendering a perpetual state of hypervigilance. Our minds become conditioned to scan for potential threats, a frown, a dismissive remark, an absence of praise. This fear breeds self-consciousness. We commence overthinking every utterance, every gesture. We may forego sharing an original concept, deeming it too unconventional, too perilous. We might acquiesce to requests that run counter to our desires, fearing that a refusal will precipitate rejection. We may even suppress our emotions, presenting a stoic facade when wounded or concealing elation when thrilled, all in service of maintaining a perceived acceptable exterior. This ceaseless self-monitoring is akin to being encased in a straitjacket. It curtails our capacity for uninhibited speech, hearty laughter, and authentic connection. Our preoccupation with avoiding missteps blinds us to opportunities for genuine communion and spontaneous joy. In our fervent efforts to embody perceived external desires, we neglect our true selves. What are the tangible, quotidian practices or shifts in mindset that a reader can implement to initiate the cultivation of internal validation, thereby receding from the ingrained habit of seeking external approval? It commences with modest steps. Firstly, cultivate self-awareness. Observe the instances when you are soliciting approval. Note the attendant thoughts. What will they surmise? I trust they will find this agreeable. The mere recognition of these patterns constitutes a significant stride. Subsequently, challenge those thoughts. Inquire of yourself, is this thought verifiably true? What if I pursued what I desired? What is the most adverse outcome, and could I navigate it? Next, initiate small acts of self-approval. This might be as elementary as acknowledging a task accomplished with excellence, even if unobserved by others. I prepared a nutritious meal today, and that brings me satisfaction. Or, I navigated that awkward exchange with poise, despite its inherent difficulty. Another potent practice involves establishing personal boundaries. When you decline an endeavor that depletes your energy, you are affirming your own needs and well-being. This is a direct manifestation of self-validation. Finally, engage in activities that genuinely delight you, not for accolades, but for the sheer pleasure they afford. This could encompass singing with abandon in your vehicle, dancing with abandon in your living room, or communing with nature. These moments fortify your internal reservoir of joy and self-worth. And how does the pursuit of external validation paradoxically undermine our capacity for forming genuine, profound connections with others, rather than enhancing them? It is a cruel irony. We chase approval, believing it will render us more amiable, more connected. Yet, in reality, it repels others. When we are perpetually striving to please, we are not presenting our authentic selves. We are offering a curated version, a carefully constructed facade. Genuine connection blossoms when we embrace vulnerability, when we share our unvarnished thoughts and feelings, our strengths and our frailties. If you consistently concur, perpetually accommodate, and invariably play it safe, others are denied access to the true you. They may find the agreeable persona palatable, but they cannot truly connect with the individual concealed beneath. Furthermore, when your self-worth is inextricably linked to external validation, you can become profoundly dependent on others. This can engender a sense of neediness, which is rarely alluring. Individuals often feel compelled to constantly affirm someone who perpetually seeks it, and this is inimical to a healthy, balanced relationship. True connection is forged upon the anvil of mutual respect and acceptance, not upon the one-way trajectory of validation seeking. It is when we cease our fervent attempts to be like that we become genuinely lovable. By consciously electing to prioritize our internal compass over the capricious shifts of external opinion, we commence constructing an edifice of unshakable self-worth. This inner fortitude not only shields us, but liberates us, enabling us to present ourselves fully and authentically. However, this journey of internal validation is not a solitary pilgrimage. It is the very foundation upon which we can subsequently erect truly resonant and uninhibited connections with others, transitioning from a posture of self-sufficiency to one of shared vulnerability and joy. This propels us toward an exploration of how this newfound internal security empowers us to truly connect. 2. Managing pressure and anxiety. Life possesses a peculiar knack for testing our mettle, doesn't it? Just as we begin to luxuriate in a sense of ease, a nascent comfort in our own skin, the world frequently unfurls a curvy ball. Perhaps it's an impending major project at work, a thorny conversation we know we must initiate, or merely the pervasive hum of quotidian concerns. Suddenly, that feeling of settled equilibrium can transmute into a knot in the pit of one's stomach, a racing heart, and a mind that refuses to quiet its clamor. This is the terrain of pressure and anxiety, a realm many of us endeavor with desperate intensity to evade. But what if these junctures, these sensations of being under duress, were not inherently indicators of something amiss? What if, instead, they served as signals of burgeoning growth, opportunities to expand and embody our truest selves more fully? Such a notion might strike as peculiar, particularly when one is ensnared within its grip, feeling utterly overwhelmed. The inner cage often tightens its hold most viscerally when pressure escalates. It is akin to the bars of our self-doubt and apprehension constricting, inhibiting us from voicing our thoughts, from venturing into the unknown, or from simply inhabiting the present moment. Consider the humble seed buried in the dark embrace of the earth. It requires the pressure of the soil above to fracture its shell and initiate its ascent. Without that gentle, persistent impetus, it might languish, forever denied the light. In a comparable fashion, the pressures we encounter can be the very catalysts that empower our authentic selves to break free. The crux lies not in eradicating pressure entirely and often insurmountable and, as we are discovering, suboptimal endeavor for growth, but rather in mastering its navigation. It is about cultivating an internal fortitude that remains unyielding when circumstances intensify. It is about reorienting our perception, transforming pressure from a perceived threat into an integral component of the journey, a testament to our engagement, our evolution, and our yearning for something more profound. When we succumb to anxiety or pressure, our internal vibe, that sense of harmonious resonance with ourselves and our surroundings, becomes unsettled. It resembles a radio signal suddenly dissolving into static. We struggle to discern our own thoughts with clarity, and our connection to our inner wisdom feels tenuous. This is the juncture where we must conduct an internal vibe check. The objective is not to cast judgment upon ourselves for experiencing anxiety, but rather to gently inquire, what is truly transpiring within me at this moment? Which specific thought or conviction is fostering a sense of insecurity or disharmony with the person I aspire to be? Frequently, the anxiety is not solely a product of the external situation, but a consequence of the narratives we construct about that situation. Is it a tale of inadequacy? I am not good enough? Or perhaps, if I falter, everyone will deem me a failure. These are the insidious whispers of the inner cage, urging us toward perfection, toward safety by diminishing our own presence. This brings us to the potent countermeasure against external pressure, internal validation. When anxiety takes hold, our primal inclination is often to seek external reassurance. We crave affirmation that we are adequate, capable, and worthy. While human connection is undeniably vital, relying solely on external validation to temper anxiety is akin to attempting to fill a leaky vessel. It offers a transient solution, perpetuating dependence and vulnerability. True strength, genuine resilience, emerges from the cultivation of internal validation. This entails learning to trust our own discernment, to embrace our imperfections without shame, and to acknowledge our inherent worth simply by virtue of our existence. It is about becoming our own most reliable source of acceptance. When we can affirm ourselves with, I gave it my best, and that suffices, or I am in a process of learning and growth, and that is acceptable, we forge an formidable inner bulwark against the sting of external pressure. Yet, another, often overlooked, instrument can prove exceptionally efficacious in diffusing tension and managing anxiety: self-amusement. Indeed, you read correctly, playfulness, the discovery of humor, and the gentle teasing of oneself can serve as potent tools for inner fortitude. When we are ensnared in a vortex of anxious thoughts, everything can assume an air of profound seriousness and overwhelming magnitude. But what transpires when we can inject a modicum of levity into the situation? What if we can acknowledge the inherent absurdity of our own concerns, or even find mirth in our relentless pursuit of perfection? This is not about dismissing our emotions, but about disarming the anxiety. By introducing a spirit of playfulness, we create space. We loosen the tenacious grip of anxious thoughts and remind ourselves that we are more than our worries. It is a tacit acknowledgement. Very well, this feels intense, but I can still perceive a glimmer of lightness. I can remain present with myself, even amidst this disarray. This fosters a sense of agency and tranquility even when external circumstances appear chaotic. So, how do we practically implement this? How do we maintain our internal equilibrium when pressure mounts and anxiety begins its insidious creep? It commences with the practice of observing our anxious thoughts and feelings without judgment. Rather than resisting them or succumbing to their tide, we can endeavor to regard them as clouds drifting across the sky. They appear, they move, and eventually, they dissipate. This mindful observation establishes a subtle demarcation between ourselves and the anxiety, enabling a considered response rather than an impulsive reaction. Another pivotal adjustment involves reframing the performance. All too frequently, when confronted with pressure, our minds leap to the imperative of performing flawlessly. We fret about articulating the correct words, executing the right actions, and impressing everyone within our orbit. But what if we shifted our focus from performing perfectly to showing up authentically? What if the objective ceased to be flawlessness and instead became presence, genuineness, and the unvarnished expression of ourselves, however imperfect? This liberates us from immense pressure and permits us to connect with ourselves and others from a more grounded vantage point. This leads us to a simple yet profound inquiry we can pose to ourselves, particularly when we feel the pull of external approbation. What will I like? Instead of asking, what will they like? Or what will please them? Or what will impress them? We deliberately redirect the focus inward. What will bring me satisfaction? What will resonate positively with me? What aligns with my values and aspirations? This question acts as an anchor, grounding us in our internal compass and affirming that our own happiness and fulfillment are both legitimate and paramount. It is a direct manifestation of practicing internal validation. And finally, we must embrace the potent efficacy of imperfect attempts. We are conditioned to believe that success must be achieved on the inaugural try, that anything falling short of perfection constitutes failure. However, in reality, growth is forged through the act of trying, through the process of learning, and through the willingness to be vulnerable. It is acceptable to falter. It is acceptable to experience awkwardness. It is acceptable to encounter moments of uncertainty regarding our course of action. These are not indicators of weakness, but rather emblems of courage. When we relinquish the compulsion for flawless execution and embrace the inherent value of trying and experiencing the full spectrum of emotions, the apprehension, the doubt, the exhilaration, we open ourselves to a richer, more authentic life experience. This predisposition toward imperfection serves as a cornerstone of internal security, signifying our acceptance of ourselves even when we are not at our zenith. Let us examine this in practical application. Envision Sarah, a gifted graphic designer, tasked with presenting her innovative concepts to a gathering of prospective clientele. The instant she steps onto the dais, her palms begin to perspire. Her mind races with all the potential pitfalls. What if they detest my designs? What if I falter mid-sentence? What if they perceive me as lacking experience? This is the tightening of the inner cage. She feels the immense pressure to impress, to attain perfection. Rather than allowing these thoughts to commandeer her, Sarah draws a measured breath. She recalls the vibe check. She asks herself, what is my deepest fear? She discerns that the core apprehension is judgment and rejection. She acknowledges her proficiency as a designer, yet the fear of inadequacy threatens to eclipse it. Subsequently, she remembers the transformative power of internal validation. She poses the question, what is my assessment of these designs? Do I have faith in them? Am I proud of the effort I have invested? She takes a moment to reconnect with her own contentment derived from the creative process, the hours dedicated to refining her craft. This internal affirmation begins to loosen the constricting grip of external pressure. Next, she consciously realigns her intention. Instead of contemplating, I must perform impeccably and win them over, she resolves, I will share my passion and my creative vision with these individuals. I will be forthright about my process, and I will be myself. This reframing from performance to authentic sharing precipitates a profound alteration. As she commences her discourse, she observes a few individuals in the audience exhibiting signs of disengagement. Her ingrained instinct might be to succumb to panic, to accelerate her pace, to exert greater effort to captivate. However, this time she intercepts herself. She reminds herself that not everyone will resonate with her particular style, and that is perfectly acceptable. She permits herself to experience a fleeting pang of disappointment, but refrains from allowing it to derail her momentum. She even apprehends a small, almost whimsical, thought, my goodness, This is rather intense. My heart is pounding like a drum solo. A faint smile graces her lips. This self-amusement does not eradicate the pressure, but it blunts its sharpest edge. She continues, articulating her concepts with unfeigned enthusiasm, candidly admitting when a particular design element presented a challenge to perfect, and elucidating her rationale. She does not feign omniscience, nor does she attempt to embody a persona other than her own. By the conclusion of the presentation, while not everyone erupts in a standing ovation, several individuals approach her with genuine interest, impressed by her candor and her lucid vision. She departs not with the crushing burden of a flawless performance, but with the quiet satisfaction of having presented herself authentically, even when it entailed discomfort. She navigated the pressure, not by evading it, but by fortifying her internal resilience. This capacity to manage pressure and anxiety is not about the absence of fear. It is about cultivating an internal sense of security that permits us to acknowledge our fear, validate its presence, and yet proceed authentically. It is about comprehending that the pressure we experience is frequently indicative of us extending our boundaries, and it is precisely in these liminal spaces that growth flourishes. Through the consistent practice of internal validation, self-amusement, and mindful observation, we begin to dismantle the inner cage that anxiety and pressure so often construct. This nascent resilience not only equips us to navigate stressful circumstances with greater equanimity, but also forms the very bedrock upon which more authentic connections with others can be built. When we are not perpetually on guard, striving to shield ourselves from external judgment, we are liberated to be truly present, open, and vulnerable. And it is within this realm of authentic presence that the most profound and meaningful connections can blossom. This leads us to an exploration of how this cultivated inner strength enables us to forge more authentic bonds with others, transforming our relationships from potential sources of anxiety into arenas of genuine connection. 3. Fostering genuine connections. There exists a subtle magic that unfurls when we inhabit a state of genuine ease, does it not? It manifests as a quiet thrum, a comforting warmth that radiates outward from the core. Recall those instances when you were simply in sync. Conversations meander with an effortless grace, laughter cascades spontaneously, and you sense an intrinsic rhythm with those in your orbit. It feels unforced, buoyant, and profoundly authentic. This exquisite state, this effortless communion, is not merely a serendipitous occurrence. It is a luminous signal, a resonant echo of something far more profound, your internal sanctuary of safety. When you are anchored within yourself, when you repose trust in your own feelings and hold the quiet conviction of your inherent worth, irrespective of external judgment or action, that is when the true enchantment blossoms in human bonds. It is akin to muting the incessant clamor of that inner critic, forever preoccupied with the specter of others' opinions. Suddenly, the imperative to impress, the need to perform, dissolves. You simply are. And in this state of pure being, as your genuine essence radiates unhindered, others are inevitably drawn to its luminous glow. It becomes a gentle invitation, a tacit understanding that whispers, "This is me and I am whole." This stands in stark contrast to the anxious contortions of deciphering others' desires. Remember those junctures when you meticulously curated your words, attempting to divine the alchemy that would engender favor? You would ponder, should I utter this? Would they prefer me to adopt a different demeanor? It resembled the work of a detective, perpetually scanning the room for clues to acceptability. This relentless external vigilance, this pursuit of approval, constructs an invisible cage around your authentic self. So consumed are you with contorting yourself to fit an imagined mold, you overlook the exquisite, singular architecture of your own being. The transition to genuine connection commences when we invert that paradigm. Instead of inquiring, what will please them? We begin to ask, what will please me? This is not an act of selfishness or a dismissal of others. It is the profound recognition that your own contentment, your own inner compass, is your most reliable guide. When you feel at peace with who you are, when you are harmonized with your own values and aspirations, you emanate a distinct energy. You become magnetic, not through studied effort, but through the sheer, unadulterated force of your authentic presence. Envision yourself at a gathering, perhaps feeling a tremor of timidity. If your internal foundation of safety is tenuous, you might instinctively gravitate to the periphery, consumed by the apprehension of missteps or judgment. Every movement would be under vigilant scrutiny. Yet, if you have nurtured that inner wellspring of security, you can enter the same assembly with a spirit of adventure. A flicker of apprehension may still surface, a testament to our shared humanity, but it will lack the power to paralyze. Instead, you might muse, now, who appears intriguing? What kind of dialogue would genuinely pique my interest at this moment? This inward orientation liberates you. You are not performing for validation, you are exploring authentic curiosity. And that exploration, that genuine inquisitiveness, possesses an irresistible allure. It permits the organic emergence of a shared resonance, a spontaneous rapport that feels neither compelled nor feigned. This fluidity in connection mirrors the distinction between a child at play and an actor upon a stage. A child immersed in play is lost in the moment, unburdened by self-consciousness, propelled by pure delight and discovery. The audience is an irrelevant construct, they are simply in the experience. When we inhabit our internal safety, we can tap into that childlike abandon. We can embrace whimsy, experiment freely, and find amusement in our own stumbles. This capacity for self-amusement is a potent instrument. It is the inner chuckle that acknowledges, is this not all rather wonderfully absurd? Let us find joy in it. Consider it. When you are genuinely delighted, either by an external stimulus or by your own antics, your defenses naturally recede. Your smile broadens, your eyes gleam, and your entire posture softens. This openness is infectious. It beckons others to lower their own guard. Instead of a stilted, formal exchange where each participant endeavors to present their most impeccable facade, something far more dynamic and alive unfolds. You might venture a slightly awkward jest, and rather than succumbing to panic, you can offer a self-deprecating chuckle, and that shared moment of levity can, in fact, deepen the connection. It signals that you do not take yourself with undue solemnity, rendering you both approachable and genuine. This spirit of playfulness is the antithesis of neediness. At times, when our internal sense of security wavers, we may unconsciously seek to assuage that void by leaning too heavily upon others. It is akin to possessing an empty vessel and perpetually seeking to have it filled by the love and affirmation of those around us. This can manifest as an unwitting exploitation of others for connection, not out of malice, but from a deep-seated yearning for wholeness. We might crave constant reassurance or expect others to perpetually bolster our self-esteem. This imposes a strain on the relationship, a subtle demand that can suffocate authentic connection. When you cease to depend on others for the validation of your existence, you are no longer attempting to fill a deficit. You approach relationships from a place of abundance, of inner contentment. You possess your own chalice and it is already brimming. Thus, when you connect with another, you are not seeking to have it topped up, you are offering to share its contents. You can be fully present, you can listen with profound attentiveness, you can offer your authentic self without the lurking specter of rejection or abandonment. This inherent richness, this self-sufficiency, is the very foundation upon which true, unencumbered connection is built. This does not imply a disregard for others or their emotions. Far from it. It signifies that your compassion originates from a position of strength, not desperation. You can extend empathy and support because you are not desperately seeking it for yourself. You can embrace vulnerability because you understand that even amidst turbulence, you possess an inner resilience to fall back upon. And speaking of vulnerability, it is through this cultivated internal security that we can truly welcome it. When we are not striving to project an image of unblemished perfection, we can permit ourselves to be truly seen, imperfections and all. This does not necessitate the immediate disclosure of every profound personal struggle. It means acknowledging your present emotions with honesty. If a wave of sadness washes over you, you can recognize it without shame. If an emotion of joy arises, you can express it without reservation. This authentic emotional articulation, born of self-acceptance, forges a potent bridge to deeper communion. Recall that workshop experience we may have discussed. Imagine being in a room with strangers and suddenly, During a shared activity, tears begin to well in your eyes. In the past, this might have triggered a surge of panic, a desperate attempt to conceal your face, consumed by the fear of others' perceptions. But if you have been diligently cultivating your inner sense of safety, you might feel a fleeting pang of awkwardness, followed by a profound sense of permission. You might allow yourself to experience the emotion, and in doing so, you create an opening for genuine empathy from those around you. Someone might offer a kind glance, a quiet word of solace. This shared moment of authentic human experience, born from your willingness to be present with your feelings, can forge a bond far more robust than any superficial exchange. It is a moment of true resonance, where you feel perceived and understood on a deeper plane. This capacity for authentic connection is not contingent upon grand gestures or flawless social acumen. It resides in the quiet fortitude that springs from the knowledge of your inherent sufficiency, precisely as you are. It is the courage to inhabit your own skin, even when the ground feels a little unsteady. When the pressure to meet external expectations dissipates, you can simply arrive, be present, and allow genuine connection to unfold organically. It is akin to tending your own inner garden. When your garden is healthy and vibrant, it naturally draws butterflies and bees. Similarly, when your inner world is secure and flourishing, it inherently attracts authentic, meaningful connections. So, the next time you find yourself engaged in conversation, observe the currents within you. Is your focus fixed on their appraisal of you, or are you reveling in the ebb and flow of the exchange? Are you playing it safe, or are you allowing a sliver of your authentic self, perhaps even your playful self, to illuminate the moment? The answers to these inquiries reveal a great deal about your internal landscape, and they hold the keys to unlocking deeper, more fulfilling connections with all those you encounter. It is a beautiful, ongoing odyssey, and its genesis lies in the quiet, steadfast cultivation of that safe space within yourself. 4. Emotional independence. We are perpetually drawn to external pursuits, convinced they will be the wellspring of our security and contentment. The allure of a prestigious career, a devoted partner, or a throng of admirers often promises that elusive state of being truly at peace. We cling to the belief that universal affection, or the attainment of specific milestones, will finally liberate us, rendering us impervious to harm. Yet, what becomes of this fragile sanctuary when its pillars crumble? When the career falters, the relationship dissolves, or the applause fades, so too does our perceived safety, leaving us adrift, unmoored. This is the insidious illusion of external emotional security. This incessant outward gaze, this ceaseless quest for validation from beyond, constructs an invisible prison. We become subservient to the whims and judgments of others. Our emotional landscape, our moods, our self-assurance, our very sense of intrinsic value becomes inextricably entwined with the approbation or censure of those around us. So consumed are we by the need to gauge our standing in their eyes that our own authentic selves remain shrouded. We are prevented from simply being, from inhabiting our own presence, because our energy is perpetually diverted to managing external perceptions. It is akin to attempting a dance while perpetually glancing over one's shoulder to gauge the audience's applause. This outward orientation, this ravenous hunger for validation, stands in stark opposition to genuine internal security, perpetuating our entrapment and our perpetual reliance on external forces for a semblance of completeness or solace. Consider this. If your joy is contingent upon a stranger's compliment, what then is your state when it is withheld? A palpable dip, is it not? And if your sense of security is rooted in the embrace of a popular cohort, what becomes of it when exclusion inevitably follows? That perceived bastion of safety crumbles into dust. This occurs because we have, with profound misjudgment, surrendered the reins of our emotional well-being to external arbiters. We have, in essence, erected our dwelling upon shifting sands, presuming its steadfastness against the encroaching tide. The fundamental truth to be grasped is that authentic liberation arises not from the accumulation of external accolades or affiliations, but from the deliberate construction of a robust inner world. It is within this inner realm that our true security resides. It is the profound recognition of an inherent, deep-seated capacity for security and acceptance, irrespective of the external milieu. This is the very essence of internal safety. The concept of emotional masturbation, though perhaps startling at first, offers a potent lens through which to comprehend the phenomenon of outsourcing our emotional fulfillment. Imagine a persistent need for love, leading you to perpetually seek it from others. You are, in effect, employing them as instruments to procure a sensation that, theoretically, you possess the innate capacity to generate yourself. It is analogous to a perpetual state of hunger, where one consistently relies on others to prepare meals rather than acquiring the skill to nourish oneself. True emotional independence is the mastery of preparing one's own sustenance, metaphorically speaking. It is the profound realization that you possess the wherewithal, the inherent capability, to comfort yourself in moments of distress, to affirm your own feelings when doubt arises, and to cultivate joy and amusement even in solitude. This is not an advocacy for emotional stoicism or a denial of the human need for connection. Quite the contrary. It is about achieving a state of such profound inner completeness that the presence of another is not a necessity to mend a gaping void. Rather, connection can be offered from a position of abundance, not from a posture of desperate need. When we inhabit emotional independence, we are liberated from the gnawing desperation for external validation. The incessant ache to be liked or affirmed dissipates. This does not preclude the enjoyment of compliments or the appreciation of positive feedback. It simply signifies that our foundational sense of worth and security is no longer beholden to them. We can receive them with gratitude, yet we do not falter in their absence. This internal wellspring of self-acceptance is the very fount from which authentic self-expression flows. We can inhabit the present moment with authenticity and openness, unburdened by the perpetual performance for an audience or the bracing for criticism. We are, in essence, simply being, a state of profound and liberating existence. This fundamental pivot from the pursuit of external validation to the cultivation of internal self-sufficiency engenders a seismic shift in our modes of communication and connection. When driven by a pervasive sense of need, our interactions can become fraught with an unspoken pressure. We may subtly compel others to assuage our emotional deficits, or we may engage in an exhausting performance to secure their approval. Such dynamics breed an imbalance within relationships, transforming them from potential sources of genuine connection into arduous endeavors. Conversely, when we have meticulously constructed our internal edifice of security, when we possess the quiet confidence of self-reliance for our emotional sustenance, we approach relationships from a position of inherent abundance. We are not seeking a partner to complete us. We are seeking a kindred spirit with whom to share our completeness. It is within this fertile ground that genuine connection truly flourishes. Picture two robust trees, their roots intertwined, offering mutual support, yet each possessing an unyielding strength of its own. This fosters a synergistic and authentic bond, one forged in the crucible of mutual respect and unvarnished self-expression, rather than the fragile architecture of dependency. Consider the pervasive societal pressures that shape us. From our nascent years, we are often indoctrinated to pursue external markers of success and happiness. Our worth appears inextricably linked to our academic achievements, our professional titles, our digital accolades, or our adherence to prescribed norms of behavior. This relentless emphasis on external validation actively erodes our capacity for emotional independence. We are conditioned to seek external validation as proof of our adequacy, rather than delving within. The tangible ramifications are omnipresent. A pervasive anxiety, a compulsive people-pleasing, a crippling fear of conflict, and an inability to establish robust boundaries. The dread of forfeiting external approval becomes so profound that we suffocate our authentic selves, thereby reinforcing the confines of our inner cage. So, how does one actively foster this internal capacity? It is not a matter of serendipity, but of diligent practice. One of the most potent avenues is self-soothing. When confronted with anxiety or distress, instead of instinctively reaching for your phone to connect with a friend or seeking distraction in the digital ether, endeavor upon a different course. Engage in measured, deep breaths. Place a hand upon your chest, feeling its gentle warmth. Speak to yourself with kindness, acknowledging it is permissible to feel this way. I possess the fortitude to navigate this. This simple act of recognition and self-compassion represents a monumental stride toward emotional autonomy. Another vital component is self-amusement. When was the last occasion you indulged in an activity solely for your own delight, unburdened by the need for company or observation? Perhaps it was an impromptu dance session in your living room to beloved melodies, the creation of a whimsical poem, or the playful contortion of your features before a mirror. These acts of self-amusement serve as potent reminders that joy and levity can be generated from within. They are a testament to the declaration, "I am my own most cherished companion." When we encounter adversity, a challenging conversation, a formidable task, or critical feedback, our emotional independence functions as an unshakable anchor. Rather than being buffeted by the tempest of external judgment, we remain grounded. We can access our internal reservoirs of strength to maintain composure, to engage in lucid deliberation, and to respond with authenticity rather than succumbing to defensiveness or withdrawal. This is the essence of self-mastery, of dictating our own internal climate rather than allowing external circumstances to dictate our emotional state. It is the cultivation of the resilience to remain with oneself, to place faith in one's own feelings and instincts, even amidst external chaos. This capacity to remain present and in command of our internal equilibrium is paramount for genuine self-expression. When unburdened by the specter of external opinion, we can articulate our truths, disseminate our ideas, and convey our emotions with unhindered freedom. We transition from a mode of performance to one of authentic sharing. This distinguishes a carefully orchestrated spectacle from a genuine exchange. The former is driven by a hunger for affirmation, the latter by a desire for connection. Envision two individuals navigating a contentious work meeting. The first, dependent on external validation, may feel an overwhelming compulsion to acquiesce to every opinion, even if it contradicts their own, in order to circumvent discord and preserve a favorable image. They might experience a knot of anxiety tightening in their stomach, their gaze perpetually scanning faces for glimmers of approval or disapproval. This is the constricting cage of performance. The second individual, having diligently cultivated emotional independence, may perceive the same external pressures, yet possesses an inner compass. They can acknowledge the divergence of viewpoints, perhaps articulate their own perspective with clarity and respect, and maintain equanimity even if their stance is not immediately embraced. They are not performing, they are contributing. They can engage with the situation authentically by being present and genuine rather than attempting to manipulate the outcome through the artifice of people-pleasing. This internal anchor, this self-sufficiency, is not a prescription for isolation or a renunciation of human connection. It is about cultivating such profound inner solidity that one is empowered to forge strong, healthy, and authentic bonds with others. It is a movement from the utterance of "I need you" to the declaration of "I choose you." When the imperative to be completed by another dissolves, one can truly appreciate them for their intrinsic being, and in turn, be appreciated for one's own. This fosters relationships predicated on mutual esteem, genuine affection, and shared delight, rather than the precarious foundation of unfulfilled needs. The journey toward emotional independence is a gradual unfolding, a process of gently turning inward. It necessitates the discernment of patterns that tether us to external affirmation and a conscious commitment to nurturing our innate resilience. It is the profound realization that the most dependable wellspring of security, acceptance, and fulfillment is not located in some distant realm but resides in its entirety within. This inner fortitude serves as the bedrock for all subsequent aspirations, particularly in the realm of authentic communication and connection. Having thoroughly explored the profound liberation and unyielding resilience that emotional independence bestows, we now direct our focus toward the active cultivation of this inner strength. This endeavor transcends mere conceptual understanding, demanding the deliberate construction of the internal scaffolding that underpins it, thereby ushering us toward the next crucial element, the cultivation of self-acceptance. 5. Role-playing for adaptability. We often conceive of strength as an unyielding monolith, a steadfast oak weathering tempests. And indeed, there is a profound beauty in such unwavering resilience. Yet, what if true strength, the kind that liberates us to truly live and forge genuine connections, resembles not a rigid oak, but a yielding willow, one that bends, sways, and adapts without succumbing to fracture? What if it is rooted in an inner core, so profound that we can dance playfully with life's caprices rather than bracing for impact? This is where our focus pivots from fortifying walls to constructing bridges within our own being and bridges to the world around us. It is an acknowledgement that the inner cage that so often ensnares us is fashioned less by external forces than by the very architecture of our own apprehension. Fear of inadequacy, fear of misstatement, fear of falling short of some spectral standard. These anxieties compel us to cling to a fixed conception of ourselves, a meticulously crafted persona we believe will shield us. But this very adherence, this relentless need to be perpetually on and impeccably correct, is the mechanism of our entrapment. It stifles our capacity for authentic flow, for presence, for being us. Consider the endeavor of genuine conversation, of authentic connection, while perpetually preoccupied with another's judgment. You are not truly listening, you are merely awaiting your turn to speak, or worse, attempting to divine their thoughts, and contort your own to align. This is the cage. It is erected upon the precarious foundation of seeking external validation. True liberation, true flow, arises when we can stand firmly upon our own convictions, assured and accepted within ourselves, irrespective of external circumstances. This is the essence of what we term internal safety. It is the quiet assurance that whispers, "I am sufficient, precisely as I am, even in my stumbles and my occasional follies." Possessing this internal safety liberates us from the imperative to perform. We can simply be present. We can be authentic. We can even indulge in a measure of playfulness. This is where the concept of adaptation finds its footing, and one of the most potent, yet frequently overlooked, avenues for cultivating this adaptability lies in the practice of role-playing. Now, when I speak of role-playing, I do not allude to assuming a specious persona to deceive. I refer to something far more emancipatory. Envision it as a secure, spirited sandbox for your intellect. It is a means to consciously inhabit alternative perspectives, to experiment with varied responses, and to explore hypothetical scenarios without the imposition of real-world repercussions. It is akin to honing a new skill in a controlled environment before engaging in the grand contest. This rehearsal is paramount to loosening the constrictive grip of that inner cage. We frequently operate from a deeply entrenched script dictating who we believe we ought to be. This script dictates our utterances, our comportment, even our emotional responses in specific contexts. It is forged over years by our experiences, our upbringing, and the implicit messages we absorb regarding acceptability. If you are habitually the responsible one, your script might dictate: always possess a plan, never betray vulnerability, be that fixer. If you tend toward the quiet observer, your script may prescribe: avoid drawing attention, listen more than you speak, eschew conflict. These scripts can feel protective, like a familiar, comfortable garment, but they can also transmute into a cage, constricting our range and preventing us from manifesting in ways that might be more authentic or beneficial in a given moment. Role-playing empowers us to deliberately step beyond the confines of our habitual script. Imagine a situation that typically evokes profound anxiety, perhaps a professional meeting where you hesitate to voice your opinions. Within a role play, you can consciously elect to embody the persona who does speak up. You can practice the sensation of offering a suggestion, however nascent. You can experiment with varied phrasings, different degrees of assuredness, and observe the somatic resonance. This is not an endeavor to become someone you are not. It is a revelation that you can transcend the limitations of your customary script. You discern that the apprehension you experienced was less about the external circumstances than about your internal conviction that you we're incapable of navigating them differently. This practice of venturing beyond our script is fundamental to cultivating internal safety. When we discover that we can experiment with diverse modes of being without disintegration, our reliance on the old, rigid script diminishes. We begin to trust our innate capacity for adaptation. We perceive that the self we have so fiercely guarded is more pliant than we had presumed. This is where the dread of judgment begins to recede. If you test a new line in a role play and it falters, you can simply shrug, laugh, and try anew. There is no genuine ignominy, no enduring consequence. This freedom to experiment without penalty directly counteracts the paralyzing fear of missteps in lived experience. And this leads us to a vital component: self-amusement. Life, and certainly role-playing, can be wonderfully absurd. You might be tasked with portraying a character explaining the virtues of a purple potato to a conclave of skeptical felines, or perhaps brokering a peace accord between two warring factions of squirrels. In such instances, the innate human response might be panic, or a frantic search for the correct solution. But what transpires when, instead, you can locate a flicker of humor in the inherent ridiculousness? What if you can embrace the silliness, contort your features amusingly, or propose an utterly unforeseen, yet charmingly bizarre, resolution? This capacity to find amusement in unexpected or chaotic circumstances is a potent indicator of internal safety. It signifies that you are not so rigidly bound by the imperative for perfection or control that you cannot savor the journey. When you can laugh at your own awkwardness or the sheer strangeness of a scenario, you are signaling to yourself that you are secure. You do not require the external affirmation of a flawless performance. You can affirm yourself through your own spirited disposition. Role-playing provides a low-stakes milieu for cultivating precisely this faculty. You practice responding to curveballs not with dread, but with a sense of curious delight. You learn to exclaim, "Well, that is unexpected. Let us see what unfolds." Consider how this mirrors real-life interactions. How often have you found yourself in a conversation, a meeting, or even a social gathering when something unforeseen arises? A question for which you lack an answer, a remark that disorients you, a sudden shift in topic. Our customary reaction, fueled by that inner cage, is to freeze, to attempt to retreat, or to offer a weak, unconvincing reply. We feel the pressure to possess the correct response, to preserve our meticulously constructed facade. But what if, instead, we could tap into that practiced role-playing faculty? What if we could approach the unexpected with a spirit of playful curiosity, much as we would in our sandbox exercises? This is where the concept of the Z feature emerges, a term denoting something we may have overlooked or deliberately concealed, a crucial element intrinsically linked to a deeper truth or even a past vulnerability. In role-playing, these unforeseen twists and turns function as the Z features of a scenario. They challenge our preordained responses and compel us to improvise. The adaptability we cultivate through role-playing is precisely the competence required to navigate these Z features of existence. It is not about possessing a flawless, pre-written response for every conceivable situation. That is both unattainable and exhausting. It is about trusting our innate capacity to think on our feet, to connect disparate elements, and to respond authentically, even in the absence of complete information. When we have rehearsed stepping into diverse roles, experimenting with varied modes of expression, and discovering humor in the unexpected, we forge a resilience that enables us to confront these moments not with fear, but with a species of creative engagement. We learn to articulate, "Very well, this is novel. How can I respond in a manner that feels true to me in this very moment?" Let us examine how this manifests when confronted with what feels like a significant challenge. Envision yourself at a networking event, and an individual poses a direct question about your career trajectory that feels somewhat untidy. Perhaps you have transitioned through numerous roles, or your career has not adhered to a linear path. Your inner cage constricts. Your script screams, "Concealed the disarray. Present a flawless sequential narrative." You may feel a flush of embarrassment, an urgent impulse to fabricate a more impressive account. But what if you have been diligently practicing role-playing? You may have, during your practice sessions embodied the role of someone remarkably candid about their journey, even its circuitous aspects. You may have discovered that when you frame your experiences as opportunities for learning, as exploration, rather than as failures, individuals respond with genuine interest and respect. You may have honed the art of weaving a narrative that acknowledges the detours, but accentuates the growth and the lessons acquired. In that networking scenario, rather than feeling ensnared by the question, you can access that practiced adaptability. You might articulate with an unfeigned smile, "That is an excellent query. My path has been more akin to a winding adventure than a straight road, and I have gleaned immeasurable wisdom from each turn. For instance, in my capacity at X, I unearthed Y, which subsequently propelled me towards Z." You are not fabricating. You are not dissembling. You are consciously choosing to present your narrative in a manner that reflects your current understanding and confidence, a confidence fortified by the practice of adopting varied ways of articulating your own experience. You are leveraging your internal safety to guide your external expression. This is the potency of role-playing. It illuminates for us that our identity is not a fragile construct poised to shatter if we deviate from the norm. It is a vibrant, evolving tapestry. By consciously experimenting with diverse threads, varied patterns, we realize that we are the weavers. We develop a profound appreciation for our own inherent flexibility and our capacity for adaptation. The dread of judgment diminishes because we have already rendered our own judgment and found ourselves worthy, even in our imperfect attempts. We have learned to be our own most compassionate observers. So, how do we practically implement this? It can be as straightforward as mentally rehearsing a conversation, albeit with a subtle alteration. Instead of envisioning the ideal exchange, imagine one that presents a modest challenge. What if your superior requests something you are uncertain of your ability to deliver by the deadline? Instead of succumbing to the dread, mentally inhabit that role. What would you articulate? What if you were to say, "I am not entirely certain I can accomplish that by Friday, but I can assuredly complete X"? Might we discuss prioritization? Or what if you chose to embody the role of someone supremely confident in their problem-solving prowess? How would they respond? You can also engage in this with a trusted confidant. Establish a scenario, perhaps a challenging familial discussion, or a situation necessitating the establishment of a boundary. Alternate assuming each role. The imperative is to approach it with a spirit of exploration, not performance. When it is your turn to assume the challenging role, endeavor to embody their perspective. When you are embodying yourself, strive to access that sensation of internal safety. Observe what shifts. What feels more facile? What feels more arduous? The Z feature of adaptability, that faculty for embracing the unknown and integrating unexpected elements, is not some arcane talent. It is a skill refined through consistent practice. Role-playing stands as one of the most efficacious means of honing this skill. It is a method for actively cultivating comfort with uncertainty, for finding our equilibrium when the ground beneath us shifts, and for trusting our capacity to formulate a meaningful response, even when the script remains unwritten. It is the realization that adaptability does not entail diminishing oneself, but rather amplifying one's true, expansive essence, enabling one to confront life's vicissitudes with grace, humor, and unshakable internal fortitude. By venturing into the playful realm of role-playing, we not only acquire the capacity to adapt to external circumstances, we cultivate an internal flexibility that allows us to be more present, more self-accepting, and more authentically connected. Conclusion: as you close the final pages of The Inner Cage, you may find yourself reflecting on the subtle, yet profound, shifts that have occurred within. Recall the moments you felt the invisible bars of self-doubt, the pressure to perform, the anxious silence before speaking. These were the echoes of the inner cage, and we have spent this journey discovering the ultimate key to its dissolution. True freedom in how we connect with ourselves and others, in how we express our unique selves, does not stem from striving for perfection or from needing external validation. It arises from cultivating a robust, secure inner sanctuary, a space where self-acceptance flourishes, even amidst imperfection. This is the heart of what we have explored, the cultivation of internal safety. We have witnessed how the relentless pursuit of external approval, akin to a desert mirage, only intensifies the thirst for genuine connection. It is a fleeting balm that perpetuates our confinement. True vibing, that effortless dance of authentic exchange, is not born from a meticulously crafted performance, but from the bedrock of internal safety. When we learn to ask ourselves, what is currently undermining my sense of safety? We begin to dismantle the invisible walls that imprison our true essence. This pivot from seeking what will they like to what will I like marks a powerful evolution. It signifies the recognition that our own feelings and values serve as our truest compass. It means relinquishing the compulsion to perpetually perform and instead embracing the unadulterated joy of simply existing, of being able to laugh at our foibles, to indulge in a touch of whimsy, and to forge genuine connections from a place of authentic presence, not artifice. This journey into internal safety transcends mere intellectual pursuit. It is a profound recalibration of your very being. It is the quiet confidence that empowers you to voice your truth even when your voice falters. It is the resilience that enables you to withstand the tempests of criticism, secure in the knowledge that your worth is not dictated by the ephemeral opinions of others. Anchored in your own sense of safety, you navigate the world with a quiet power, an almost invincible grace, for you no longer seek permission to exist. It liberates your creativity, facilitating an effortless flow where ideas emerge with ease, and it allows for deeper human connection. Unburdened by the pretense of a mask, you can embrace the beautifully messy chaos of life, secure in your capacity to navigate it. The insights unveiled within these pages are not intended as definitive conclusions, but as ongoing invitations. The cultivation of internal safety is a lifelong practice, a continuous dialogue with the self. Remember the simple yet profound question, what if, for the next 10 minutes, I simply remain with myself, unconditionally? This is the essence of the ongoing work, the conscious choice to honor your internal landscape, to trust your own intuition, and to recognize that you possess the inherent capacity to nurture your own well-being, to bestow upon yourself the love and validation you rightfully deserve. It is the profound understanding that you are enough, precisely as you are, in this very moment. May you continue to unlock your inner cage, to embrace your authentic self, and to traverse the world with the uninhibited freedom and joy of true connection. The potent force of internal safety is now yours to command, enabling you to truly vibe and flow, perpetually.